Hi, my name is Kirk Hamilton, and I'm your host of the Staying Healthy Today show. This is a show where we bring you key experts in the fields of nutrition, prevention, integrative, and lifestyle medicine. Or sometimes I talk on an individual topic or multiple topics like I'm going to do tonight. And it's for individual society and the world. And this particular, what I do is for those of you who follow my Substack, what I do is I glean the literature of things that I think are important in integrative medicine, but also that expands to geopolitics sometimes, and I give links to ones that I think are important, so people can go to them quickly and read them if they want, and if they don't, they don't. And I don't just write one topic per per issue, and that's the way I've always been. I've been a collector of information, and I just want to lay it out there for people, and they either like it or they don't. I'm not trying to convince you. I'm just trying to share what I think is quality information. So today there were just so many. The first thing when I looked at all the different, probably 50 or 100 links that I put up here or in this newsletter or post, the word infowar comes out of my mind. Maybe I'm watching too much of Alex Jones's show, but it's like when I think is reasonable and truthful, there's something totally counter to that that is being propagated by generally what we call the legacy media and other people, or people who are have such strong political beliefs that they can't see and try and evaluate things. They just come from a political perspective. And so I wanted to go through that. And the reason I did is because the first topic that I happened to summarize was there was this great paper, and it came out by Richard Lindzen. He's a PhD. He's a professor of Earth Science, Atmospheric, and Planetary Sciences, Emeritus, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and William Happer, PhD, Professor of Physics, Emeritus, Princeton University. So no slouches. And they had I don't know where I found it, but it was a link to it. Title is Physics Demonstrates That Increasing Greenhouse Gases Cannot Cause Dangerous Warming, Extreme Weather, or Any Harm. More carbon dioxide will create more food. Eliminating fossil fuels will be disastrous for people worldwide. And I've evolved in my thinking. I used to, I would only invest in solar and wind, and I've had an eco car since cars got 50 miles to the gallon, and I don't have a electric car, but I have a hybrid, and I've had it for a long time. But I've evolved. I I don't believe in global warming being harmful. I believe in more of this type of approach. And so anyway, there's a link in my Substack to their paper. It's about oh, 10 or 15 pages, and I highly recommend it. It's very readable, from very elite scientists when you talk about this hot issue. And so that's one thing, like InfoWars. You can just talk to your neighbor or talk to a colleague at work like I did, and they say, yeah, you're wrong. 90% of the world scientists think something different. So that was one thing. Another was, we're at the brink of nuclear war. I mean, we have people, leaders, making comments that are very provocative. And so Tulsi Gabbard, who's a director of DNI, the director of national intelligence, she did a really nice podcast or interview, and she talks about that topic, and it just brings you and kind of grounds you to how close we are, and that any type of tactical nuclear war is craziness. It's insanity. So then you have some people in our government who believe they talk about tactical news like, it's nothing. Then we had the COVID thing. So on the one hand, we had Dr. Ioannidis. He was very well liked, or he's a Stanford professor, and he came up with that we over exaggerated the lethality of the COVID virus. I think was the death rate. And now he comes out with that the vaccines have saved millions and millions of lives. And it's just paradoxical. It's like, again, you can listen to Peter McCullough right after this, who's the MD, cardiologist, epidemiologist, internist, who has spoken all over the world in front of many different governmental bodies about the harms of the vaccines. And then we have Steve Kirsch, a brilliant tech man who was on the left, so to speak, or a Democrat, and he's taken this on, and he's probably the person that argues more about the vaccines are harmful than anybody. So again, we have this paradoxical world where it's like sometimes you think you're schizophrenic. So I have links to some of what they have to say, and then we have the sad part about human trafficking. We have human trafficking. We have 350,000 maybe children from the mass illegal migration that are we don't know where they are, and bad things are happening to them. And then there was this excellent interview about human trafficking, not just in that sense from immigrants coming in, but from actually people in the United States. And so there's a link to that. It was in Epoch Times. It's very powerful. How traffickers prey on America's youth. An interview with Jocko Buyens, American thought leaders. That's by one of my favorite people to interview, or interviews people, Jan Jekielek. Then we get into the lighter stuff. We get into like nutrition. That's been my field for a long time. And so I start off with aging a lot, Alzheimer's a lot. And so I came up with some bean recipes. You'll see, well, I didn't come up with them. They come from the Blue Zone, but there's about 10 bean recipes. And with all the carbohydrate bashing, the fact of the matter is that beans are in every longevity society as a staple. So I think we need to sometimes be careful how we say things about carbohydrates. Carbohydrates in their whole state, especially if they're low glycemic, are really foods that are very, very, very good for us. And then a topic that was really interesting was what happens when you integrate preschool into a long-term care facility, joy and purpose for all. And I was actually at some meditation conferences by Dr. Joe Dispenza, and they had they're week long sometimes, and they had elderly individuals with young people and how both benefit. And this intrigued me. And so hopefully I'd like to interview the author of this article. But if you think about it, daycare centers that are in adult care facilities, and there's interaction. That's the way to keep people young. Then there's some nice stuff about magnesium in the diet and brain volume. I've got a lot on cognitive decline, the importance of sleep. We know the microglia goes around and cleans up in the brain, and that's how we consolidate memory at sleep. That's my weakest area. Not because I can't sleep, it's because I don't sleep because I do stuff like this and stay up and work a lot. And then there was one, on just thought I'd bring it up on dementia and ivermectin in this 92-year-old that Dr. Mackis did a case study of that had a response. How it works, who knows? Things you can do for fibromyalgia, and then an interview I hope to do with a Dr. Glenn Jeffrey from the United Kingdom. It was an article entitled "Sunlight Penetrates the Human Body." Improving mitochondrial function and vision. Well, actually, that was the subhead, the subheading. The main article heading was longer wavelengths in sunlight pass through the human body and have a systemic impact, which improves vision. And what got me is that the point is that wavelengths of sunlight go through our bodies and they create things that happen even if you have your clothes on. Now, one of the things I like to do, I had colon cancer. And I walk every day outside, and I like the sun, and I like to do my walk for an hour. I don't burn, but I believe that there's something beyond vitamin D that helps heal me. And he talks about in this article infrared light, far infrared lights, and how it not only stimulates vision, but mitochondrial function. So I hope to, I just got an email back from Dr. Jeffrey, and we'll set up a time and interview him on this topic, and we'll publish it here. Thyroid function. A lot of times we just think of iodine or zinc copper ratio, but iodine, selenium, iron, zinc, copper, magnesium, vitamin A, and B12 all play a role. And there's an article link to that. And then, we get into the cancer. And yes, I have a lot on ivermectin, and I'll just say it now. The three things, I do a lot of scanning of Dr. Mackis's work, and I read the case studies almost every day. And the consistent well, the consistent three repurposed drugs are ivermectin, fenbendazole, mebendazole, and then some of the nutraceuticals are CBD and melatonin, but others. But the three drugs are those. So there's a whole slew of those case studies that I try and click links to so you can read them. And if someone, like I use them for patients, if you're thinking about using repurposed drugs, read about um, these different types of cancers and how they've worked in these people, these case studies. But one in particular, in it's kind of like, again, this world of the info world. I mean, you're schizophrenic. Deion Sanders, one of the best athletes ever to play professional football, played for my team, the 49ers, the Dallas Cowboys, played baseball. And so he had clots in his legs. He was very pro vaccine. He had clots in his legs. He had partial amputation. I'm not sure if it was just the toes or part of his leg. And then, went on to coaching, and he's coaching successfully at I think it's University of Colorado. And then he came on with a bladder cancer, and he's had a bladder repair or replacement. I mean, and so the first thing you think about is vaccines, turbo cancers, and so Dr. McCullough has a commentary on that. But that's powerful stuff. It's powerful stuff. So the whole thing about, again, like, you just listen to one side of the world and there's nothing wrong with the vaccine. And the other side of the world, you're seeing all these people being treated for vaccine injury and using repurposed drugs. And so I try and lay it out there and let you read for yourself. Um, then that's about it. I mean, there's a lot on COVID vaccines. There's a lot on COVID vaccines and brain function. I mean, there's the whole list. COVID vaccines and myocarditis and things you can do for that. Dr. McCullough talks about that a lot. The nattokinase of bromelain, the curcumin, and then a recent article by a Brazilian doctor, Zabalos, I believe I said it right. I had that he interviewed, Dr. McCullough interviewed, where they use bifidobacter and ivermectin. And then Dr. McCullough frequently uses colchicine when there's inflammation in the heart. And then we have, post-vaccine syndrome and brain fog, and Dr. Jessica Rose, who's writes the Substack Unacceptable, talks about uh, functional PET scans and how they show hypometabolism in certain areas of the brain in people that have had the COVID vaccine. So, lastly, I ended with Michael Yon. He's a Special Forces Green Beret, or was, and then he was a combat correspondent in the thick of things during the Gulf War, and then he now travels all over the world. And he's a world expert on international migration, but he writes about the big picture of global control, who's doing what, and it's very, very powerful. And a lot of times, the reason I spent a lot of time listening to him, well, now for a lot of reasons, but originally it's he was down the Panama Canal, the Darien Gap, which is the area between Colombia and Panama, where a lot of the migrants came up, and a lot of them were killed and raped, and just tragic. And so he's seen that firsthand. Takes people down there. So what does it leave us with? Leaves us with, we have to think the bright side. We have to, I think, image good outcomes and the feeling of what that would mean, um, because we're in a world that's in transition. And so hopefully you'll get something from the links below, something that helps your life. And I'll talk to you soon, and you have a fabulous day.